Hi, good afternoon. My name is Associate Professor Deanne Skelly, and I'm here with you this afternoon. Fantastic that you've been able to take some time out of your day to come and have a chat with me. So my role is the Program Director for the Bachelor of Biomedical Science and the Bachelor of Medical Science here at Griffith University. So the reason why I'm chatting with you today is to talk to you about careers in biomedical science and medical science. Now, I know for some of you, you've got some wonderful burning questions, and we have the opportunity after my brief presentation for you to go and ask some questions, but by all means, start asking away now. Absolutely fantastic to see you. And first of all, what I wanted to do was just give you a little bit of a talk about me and my background. And then from there, we can launch into any questions that you have. So please don't hold it against me, but I grew up in Adelaide. Beautiful city, very small city. I did my Bachelor of Science at the University of Adelaide, and then I did what we call an honours year. Now with honours, this is basically a year following your basic bachelor's degree where you focus on research. And so I did a research project, I collected some data, very similar to probably what you were thinking. And then after that year, I did a PhD. Wonderful opportunity to do a PhD in an area that I was interested in. From that, I was very fortunate that I'd gained enough experience so that after my PhD, I had the opportunity to go overseas. And so it seems like 150 years ago, but quite a while ago now, I went to a university overseas and did what they call a postdoctoral fellowship. So I worked in the United States for, goodness me, 3.5 years, did a whole host of research over there. My apologies, I'm just getting some bleepers through. So just to let you guys know that you can go and ask questions, okay? If, for example, there's a question that somebody else has asked and you're really interested in it, you can use the thumbs up if you really want to hear the answer to that question, because it could be that there's a few of you students that are interested in the topics. Okay, so back to my life. So after I did my postdoctoral training at an institution in the US called Johns Hopkins, I came back to Australia. So I've done a few years at different institutions, but my role at the moment is as an academic. So what does an academic scientist do? So my day is split into a few different pathways. I teach students, so I teach students that are undertaking the Bachelor of Science, the Bachelor of Biomedical Science, the Bachelor of Medical Science, and a few others as well. I have this fantastic research group, and we're doing research looking at the effects of maternal nutrition on offspring development. And I do other things as well, like I interact with other scientists that are not only within Australia, but all over the world. So I really enjoy being a scientist because it gives me the opportunity to investigate questions that I have. So for example, my question at the moment is, can we modify a mother's diet before pregnancy, and how does that affect the developmental outcomes for her offspring? So this to me is fascinating. The beauty of it was that a recent paper that my research group published, that was picked up by media outlets in the US, the UK, Iran, New Zealand, France, a whole host of different places in the world. And also I got to go onto the radio and speak to a radio announcer on ABC Brisbane. So for me, science and biomedical science has really opened up new opportunities that I never had if I'd just gone down a pathway where a lot of my friends were doing. They were going straight from high school into office jobs, all those sorts of things. So I'm really passionate about science in general, and I would love to hear any questions that you have. So for me at the moment, there's a little bit of a challenge, and the challenge, as you know, everybody is having new ways of how we learn, new ways of undertaking their work. And so for me, the challenge at the moment is the fact that I really enjoy teaching, but my students are all remote. And so what I mean by that is now as an academic, I have to teach online, I have to conduct research meetings online, and unfortunately at the moment we can't get into the lab. But normally what would happen is that we would have fantastic opportunities where we could go into the lab and we could do research and we could engage with others. So one of the questions that Carly's asked is about the careers biomedical and medical science cover. Now, I'd just like to clarify a little bit about the difference between the two. So in general, a medical science degree is typically what we call a pre-med degree. And so what that means is that in Queensland, the majority of medical degrees where you can practice as a doctor, that would be something that you would do after your first degree. So your first degree that you would normally do would be a Bachelor of Medical Science, and then you would do what they call a postgraduate degree afterwards, and then you would, you know, develop into a doctor and specialise in the areas that you would like to. Now, a medical science degree, certainly at Griffith, is an accelerated program where if you maintain your grades and get a certain grade average, then you have an automatic transfer over into the postgraduate medicine program. If you're interested in medicine, but you don't get enough in your ATAR to be able to do medicine, you can do a biomedical degree. But what happens with that is that there's no guaranteed offer into the postgraduate medicine program. You have to go and get good grades in your biomedical degree. Then what you need to do is you need to, in your second year, typically do an external test called a GAMSAT. Depending upon your GAMSAT score is whether or not you can go into an interview, and often these interviews are in panels, and then from there you might be offered a position in a postgraduate medicine program. So certainly in Queensland, I don't think that there's any undergraduate medicine programs, but a biomedical, my apologies, a medical science degree is usually classified as a pre-med degree, assuming you get a certain level of grade in your degree. So one of the questions is, can we use biomed as a pathway? So you definitely can, but please be mindful that sometimes people go into a biomedical program and they don't necessarily transition into a postgraduate medical program. Some people, what they like to do is they go into a biomedical program and they decide, for example, to do it for a different pathway. And for example, they could go into research, they could go into allied health, where after their undergraduate biomedical degree, they go into something like a master in pharmacy or a master in speech pathology. But certainly a biomedical degree program can allow you to go into medicine, but it can also allow you to go into a whole host of other degree programs. Now, typically what happens is for a lot of these postgraduate degree programs, you need to have a certain undergraduate. And what I mean by a certain undergraduate is that when you do your undergraduate bachelor's degree, you need to do certain subjects. And so certainly a biomed degree can allow you to do that. The question that Carly's asked, sorry, my apologies, Charlie's asking is if you can get in with a QCE or do you need an ATAR? So I know that the current ATAR that the university is advertising is 69.35. The best thing to do, Charlie, is actually to contact admissions to find out the requirements associated with a QCE. What will happen is admissions has a plethora of knowledge and they'll be able to tell you other avenues for getting into university that's not just based on an ATAR score. Okay, so one of the questions that a student has asked about the subjects that you need to do to go and get into medical science degree. Now, medical science, just to let you know, I know it's a bit different now because we're going obviously to the ATAR system, and last year we had the OP system. So with the OP system, it was an OP1. I'm just jumping on the website now, and they're saying that the ATAR is 99.45. Now, what happens is these courses are so competitive. So say, for example, what we have is we go and have approximately 40 students at the Nathan campus, for example, for Griffith, and 40 students at the Gold Coast campus. So what happens is there may be 400 students who go and get the necessary ATAR, but they don't actually make it into the program. And the reason why is that just with everything, all of your studies that you do, what happens is the top students get offered the positions first. Positions are usually capped at a university for a certain degree. And then whether or not you go and get those necessary grade or not, it may mean that you actually miss out, because when you're ranked against everybody, that the ranking means that you're not top of the list. So certainly I would highly recommend that you do your best that you possibly can. I know, for example, if you're in Year 12 this year, there are a few challenges, but we're all very mindful of that. But what you need to do is you need to make sure that you do the best possible grades that you can so that you can get in. I'd highly recommend that you have a look at different websites from the different institutions to make sure that you have the necessary knowledge. So I've just jumped onto the Griffith website here for medical science. So you need prerequisites of things like English or English as an additional language, and assumed knowledge is things like mathematical methods and either a biology, a chemistry, or a physics. Now, one thing that I do note is, because in my particular case here at Griffith, what happens is we have some students that have gone into medical science and they don't have the necessary, they do have the necessary prerequisites, but say, for example, in first year, there's a lot of biology content, but they haven't done biology. But that's okay. Don't let the fact that you haven't done biology in Year 12 be a deterrent not to be able to get in. Leadership. So what happens is, one of our followers here today is asked about leadership positions such as school captain, boost my chances. What happens is certain institutions will look favourably upon students that have done certain subjects in high school. So what I mean by that is, say, for example, there are certain subjects which we all know are quite difficult. What will happen is you will get extra bonus points if you do those difficult courses in your high school. So, and also, for example, if you're in a rural area, you'll get bonus points associated with that as well. And what happens is these let you increase your chances of getting in. So definitely have a look to see if any of those situations can benefit you. What I'm just doing is, my apologies, I'm just scrolling. So somebody has asked a question. Oh my goodness me, there's lots of questions here and I didn't see them all. My apologies. Okay, a sports scientist. What happens is, if you're thinking about, so Charlie has asked that, my apologies, she or he has said that she'd like to be a sports scientist. There are other opportunities if you're interested in doing sports science. So what I would recommend is there are other degrees such as an exercise science degree, which may be better suited if you're thinking about the sports scientist pathway. But there is, for example, opportunities to do postgraduate study after a biomedical degree that could help you if you're interested in doing the sports science pathway. So what I mean by that is, say, for example, you do a Bachelor of Biomedical Science and then you do a postgraduate in, say, clinical physiology. You could learn techniques that sports scientists use when they're dealing with athletes. So the questions about, one thing I just wanted to let you know is that often courses such as medical science are very competitive. What that means is that, as I said earlier, that say for example there's 40 positions in that degree, there may be 400 students that apply, and there may be 150 students that have the necessary ATAR. If you're interested in doing something like medical science but you don't get in, but you're still very keen on doing medicine, then I would choose a degree that does very similar subjects to the medical science degree. And so, for example, a degree program that has a lot of anatomy and physiology and biochemistry and molecular biology and those sorts of things, certainly do all of those particular subjects as part of your undergraduate degree. But for those of you that have just jumped in, if you go and are interested in doing a medicine degree, if you don't get into a program like a medical science degree, which is a pre-med degree, and you go and do a program such as biomedical science, you will need to go through the ATAR, the GAMSAT system, and also you will need to do an interview to be able to get a position. The beauty of it is that if you're strong enough to get into the medical science degree and then transfer into postgraduate medicine, that you don't need to worry about the GAMSAT, you don't need to worry about the interview situation as well. So if there's a question here about if you wanted to become a doctor, would it be better to do a biomedical or medical science? So if you're interested in becoming a doctor, I would highly recommend you try your best to get into the medical science program. The reason being is that if you're successful and you go and get the necessary grades throughout your degree, typically they're linked to a postgraduate degree and you go straight into a postgraduate degree. You don't have to worry about sitting the GAMSAT. You don't have to worry about doing an interview. So what happens there is that if you need to do the GAMSAT, off the top of my head, I think it's about a cost of about $500. On one day, they'll signify that this is the day for the GAMSAT test. You'll have to go somewhere and you'll have to sit this very general knowledge, but primarily focused on biological sciences test. You'll be ranked against everybody else in Australia, and the top number of students will have the opportunity to be able to be interviewed, and from the interview maybe 60 or 70% will then go on to do a postgraduate medicine. So I'm just sort of scrolling down. Does mathematics and health and physical education help you get into medical science? Well, Divine, you'll need to double check what's necessary requirement, which is on, for example, with the Griffith opportunity, you need to make sure that you do English, and then you'll need to do assumed knowledge, which is mathematical methods and one of the biology, chemistry or physics. So definitely have a look at that. And I notice also that in our chat column here that my friends have been popping in information associated with the Bachelor of Biomedical Science here at Griffith and also the Bachelor of Medical Science. And so if you have a look at those, you'll be able to see what the necessary requirements are. Do I need to get into medical science to join the ADF nursing or nursing and science? So medical science is primarily focused on students that want to go on to do postgraduate medicine. If you're interested in doing nursing, there is actually a separate degree, which is the Bachelor of Nursing. Through the ADF, you would need to contact them to look out for what their specific requirements are. But I know that a large number of universities in general have a Bachelor of Nursing. They will still do very similar topics in the first year as our medical science students, that is, you know, anatomy and physiology and chemistry and things like that. But that's a bit of a different degree program. So if you're interested in nursing, you should do a Bachelor of Nursing. One thing to note is that often when you put in your application, we don't get to see these wonderful extracurricular activities that you're doing. So when you put in your application, we see things such as your grades, your ATAR. So you need to make sure that wonderful opportunities such as being the school captain are fantastic when you're trying to transition from from a biomedical science degree to go through into postgraduate medicine, but they won't help so much when you're looking at direct entry into your medical sciences program. But fantastic leadership opportunity. I think it's wonderful for you to mentor and to lead your students. Absolutely fantastic. Okay, so my apologies to Anonymous. Are you saying there's a low chance it will be accepted into medicine, or it depends on the situation and time? Okay, so I'll just talk to you about the scenario that we had this year with the cohort that has gone into Griffith at the Nathan campus and also the Gold Coast campus. So we have 40 spots here at Nathan. We have 40 spots down at the Gold Coast, and I'm sure other institutions are very similar. What happens is our cutoff for our medical science degree was an OP1. I know that you guys are doing ATAR, and if you look at the website, I think it says the ATAR is 99.45. Okay, so we had 400 students apply for those 40 positions. Of them, probably about 150 to 200 had an OP1. So even though they had studied very hard and really dedicated their time to their study, and even though they had the necessary minimum requirement, because we could only take 40 students, even if they did had an OP1, then they weren't able to be admitted into the degree program. Okay. So say, for example, you're very keen on becoming a doctor. What happens is, I would highly recommend that as your second and third preference, you choose degrees where you can build up your knowledge to go and help you into a medical degree program, and also where you can get the fundamentals so that you can do very well in your GAMSAT test. Now, please don't think, and I hope that the message that I'm giving you isn't this, that only people that do medical science can do postgraduate medicine. There are probably 200 first-year medical science students, and of those, less than half have come through the medical science program. Okay, all the rest of the students have come from a Bachelor of Biomedical Science, Bachelor of Health Science, a Bachelor of Science. Typically, there's not too many Bachelor of Arts and those sorts of things. But typically what happens is students going into the postgraduate medicine program, less than half of them have directly come from medical science. So certainly don't think if you don't get into a medical science program as an undergraduate student that you don't have a chance to become a doctor, because you still do. Okay. My apologies, I should have brought my mouse next to me. Okay, so somebody's asked about a question about biomedical engineer. So biomedical engineer, I know it sounds funny, but it's more of an engineer than a biomedicine or biomedical scientist. So what that usually means is that you actually have to do a basic engineering degree, and then as you go through, you focus on biomedical engineering. So I would recommend that you don't do a Bachelor of Biomedical Science in that instance, but you can do biomedical engineering where largely your first year would be focused on engineering, and from there you'd then progress up in your studies to focus on specifics of biomedical engineering. Okay, as a Year 9 student, how can I benefit my chances in the future? One thing that I would highly recommend, and I know it sounds tough and especially if it's grade 9, you're thinking about so much ahead of you, is the first thing is I would definitely be very focused on how you can achieve your goals. And what I mean by that is, say, for example, you're really focused on, and I know some students right from an early age are very focused on, for example, become a doctor. what you should do is ensure that you set yourself up the best possible chance. And that means making the right study choices, making sure that all the subjects that you're doing are beneficial to you. And then, because there's a little bit of flexibility in what you do in your later years of high school, making sure that the subjects you choose, you'll know you're going to get the highest score possible. So it's a bit of a strategy. Okay, these are the subjects I need to do in high school to get into my degree that I'm interested in. And apart from that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the subjects I know I'm really good at and I know I'm going to get good grades in, because that helps you. Okay, so what you should be thinking about, even in grade 9, is start to think about, you know, where do I see myself? What sort of career do I think could be really good for me? And what do I think I'd really enjoy? And from there, move on and start to think about, okay, let's be a bit strategic about this. What are the courses that are going to get me the best grades so that I have the best possible chance to get into the degree programs that I'm interested in? Now, I'm just trying to use my little cursor thing to drag down to get the rest. One of the questions is, can we do another degree with Biomed? Well, you guys are so lucky. One of my jobs, certainly at Griffith, is to refresh the biomedical science degree so that you can. So moving forward, at least at our institution, and I'm pretty sure that other institutions in Queensland, my apologies if you're in New South Wales, you can do double degrees. And what we mean by that is typically a double degree is 4 years in total. You do the core parts of the biomedical science degree and then the core parts of your other degree. So the sorts of double degrees that you might be thinking about are biomedical science and data analytics or data science, biomedical science and business. That could be a good option depending upon what is your interest. Divine has asked if there are scholarships. Griffith University has fantastic scholarships that's available to students. You can easily find them on our website, and other institutions will also have scholarships. What happens is, certainly in our instance, is that you can go to the scholarships website and apply for a scholarship. And what will happen is there could be 5 scholarships that you could potentially apply for, but we've designed it so that there's only one form you need to fill in and you'll automatically go into the draw for all the different scholarships. But definitely there are scholarships available. And certainly if you're a student who would have to live away from home, we do have opportunity for you to live on campus if that's what is important for you, instead of commuting 3 hours every day. But yes, there's definitely opportunities for you to come on to campus and live on campus, and certainly other institutions have that as well, and certainly there are scholarship opportunities available as well. Okay, so Kiara, this is a great question. What areas can you work in after Biomed without a postgraduate degree course? So what happens is there's a large number of degrees which are what we call accredited. And so you might know of, you know, for example, a Bachelor of Nursing, a Bachelor of Education, Bachelor of Business potentially. And what happens is after you've done those degrees, it's very simple for you to go into a job, okay? With a lot of the science degrees, and I'm not just talking about biomedical science, you have to do a postgraduate qualification. You can still have an opportunity to get a job straight after your Bachelor's of Biomedical Science, but you need to make sure that while you're doing your Bachelor of Biomedical Science, that you actually open up your opportunities. And what I mean by that is, if, for example, you're interested in doing research afterwards, volunteer into research labs, start to create a network where you can discuss with others, you know, potential future employment opportunities, or you could basically try and find people who know about you so that if a job does come up, that you're the front of their mind. So another question that somebody's asked is, could you use Biomed as a pathway into medicine, into anaesthesia? Yes, definitely. But as I've explained earlier on, you will need to do your Bachelor of Biomedical Science degree. Then as part of that, well, sort of external to that, you do your GAMSAT, you do your interview, then you go into the medicine program. And then after, I think, second year in your postgraduate medicine program, you can focus on being an anesthesiologist. And certainly people have gone down that pathway. I'm just double checking that I've done all of the questions. Oh my goodness, Christian, you have a fantastic question. How long does it take from graduating year 12 until you become a practicing doctor? Okay, so I'll talk about the Griffith model. So the Griffith model is you do a 2-year, if you're fortunate enough to get in the medical science program, you do a 2-year intensive program. If you don't get in via that, or for example, you're interested in University of Queensland, something like that, you have to do a 3-year undergraduate program. And then I think the postgraduate program is something like 5 years. But as part of that, towards the end of your degree, you do specialisation. So the first 2 years is looking at fundamental knowledge, a large amount of, you do actually start to interact with patients right from the beginning. But then as you progress through your postgraduate medicine degree, you do go and have opportunities to start thinking about what specialisation you have. So you don't need to be concerned and think, okay, I have to know from my first day what sort of doctor I want to become. Okay, so maths. If you have a look at the Griffith website, and my friend Tui has put in earlier the links to biomedical science degree at Griffith, it will tell you what the necessary mathematics programs are. I know that it's, you know, for some students it's a bit of a challenge, but these are necessary prerequisites so that we ensure that you have understanding and fundamental knowledge to be able to do that. Okay, so the career options from a Bachelor of Biomedical Science. As I indicated earlier, with a Bachelor of Biomedical Science, if you wish to, you can go into jobs such as working in a laboratory, working as a technician, doing, I'm trying to think of the word, sorry, like a scientific officer where you go and work in a research laboratory doing experiments. We've had people go into teaching roles at university where they've got the necessary understanding and knowledge so they can do tutoring and demonstrating at universities. A lot of students though choose to do a biomedical science degree and have it as a foundation. And what I mean by that is from there they'll go into a postgraduate. We do have a graduate diploma in clinical physiology, where at the end of it, students can go and work as a sleep scientist, or someone doing cardiovascular function testing, someone doing respiratory testing. You could use it to go into a master's program where you become a pharmacist or a speech pathologist, or you could use it to become a dietitian, a nutritional therapist. With a biomedical science degree, it's a little bit more generic compared to a medical science degree. So medical science is assuming you get the necessary grades. You're really targeting that for going into postgraduate medicine. Okay, an example, someone's asked about a question. They're interested in getting into medicine, but they're not sure about the other opportunities apart from the biomedical science degree. I know that if you're interested in medicine, you can do a Bachelor of Science, or at the Gold Coast campus for Griffith, we do have a Bachelor of Health Science. And students, as part of those degrees, choose the very same topics that our Bachelor of Medical Science students are doing. They choose the same subjects. But just remember that if you don't get into a medical science degree and you want to go into postgraduate medicine, you do still need to do the GAMSAT and you need to do the interview. But the best thing is that if you go and do, for example, a Bachelor of Health Science or a Bachelor of Biomedical Science, is that you're doing the foundation and fundamental knowledge that will be assessed as part of your GAMSAT. So you're studying that content already, and that will help you obviously with the GAMSAT. How do you stand out from other candidates when applying if you don't have a high ATAR? So Miriam has asked about basically boosting your ATAR. So ways that you can boost your ATAR are things like if you live remotely. So say, for example, you live in the country, that can help you to increase your ATAR. If you do certain subjects, so things like chemistry and physics, they will attract extra points on your ATAR because we recognise that those subjects are quite difficult. So that's a way that you can boost your ATAR. Just making sure that I haven't missed any questions. What I should do is go, ooh. So what happens is I have this little magic box and it has lots of different questions in here. And I sincerely appreciate all of your questions, but I'm just making sure that I've answered them. So certainly if you have a look in the chat on the side, some of my friends here, my work colleagues, they've been helping us with putting in links, and I would highly recommend that you go in and you have a look at the links because the links are very helpful. So, and a lot of the links relate specifically to Griffith, but say, for example, you're interested in doing a Bachelor of Biomedical Science, but you'd prefer to do it at another institution. That's wonderful. Just make sure that you go to that institution and see what the requirements are. Okay, so every institution, even though we're doing very similar degree programs, will have different entry requirements. And if you're really keen on doing a certain degree or a certain career, then I would make sure that you cover all your bases, that you have a clear understanding about what all the institutions, not only within Queensland, but what all the institutions are actually after. So we've had a chat about scholarships, and definitely apply for scholarships. You know, every little bit helps. And say, for example, you are thinking about doing medicine and you do, for example, a Bachelor of Biomedical Science and you do get a scholarship, those sorts of things will actually help you if you get to the interview stage, because you can show leadership, you can show that you've had recognition by your peers, so definitely. And when you get to university, if, for example, you're doing a Bachelor of Biomedical Science and you want to go into medicine, there's a whole host of extracurricular activities I would highly recommend that you do to make yourself stand out from the other candidates. So definitely. So if you're really keen to become a doctor, try your hardest to get into the Bachelor of Medical Science. But if you can't, try and get into a degree program such as a biomedical science or a health science, because that would definitely help you with the fundamental knowledge that will help you with the GAMSAT. So if you want to become a surgeon, then you have to do the undergraduate degree, whether it's the Biomed, Med Sci. You have to be able to get into the postgraduate medicine, and then as part of your postgraduate medical degree, you'll basically specialise towards the end of your degree into becoming a surgeon. And it may be that you'd like to be a surgeon now, but then when you go through it, you might decide, I'd like to become an obstetrician, or I'd like to become a cardiovascular specialist. So the UCAT exam affected our opportunity to get into the medical science. So the UCAT, my assumption, is very similar to the GAMSAT. What happens is some students will choose to do the UCAT. That's the undergraduate medical program test. If you do the UCAT and you try and get into medical science, that just doubles your chance that you might get in. So it just means that you're just giving yourself more opportunities to be able to do what you're interested in. Please make sure that you have a look at the questions, because my colleagues here at Griffith have put in some great answers, and certainly that will help you in your understanding. So my dear friends, do we have any more questions for me? And my apologies if I've missed your question, please re-ask it so that way I can have a look. Okay, so one thing we might do is, because we've had some wonderful questions and it appears that there don't seem to be any new ones, we might just wrap up in a moment. One thing I'd like to say is that I know that for lots of us there's challenging times ahead, but having a strong degree behind you will give you the flexibility and the opportunities to achieve different goals that you may, my apologies, there's a crow in the background here, that you may not have thought for yourself. You know, for example, for me, when I was growing up, the area that I grew up in, a lot of the people there didn't have good job prospects, didn't have good employment prospects. But doing a science degree has enabled me to not only travel the world, to work overseas, but then to impart that passion on students now. So I love biomedical science. My brain is constantly processing data and all those sorts of things, and I'm thinking about new solutions to old problems. So certainly if your brain's like that, I'd highly recommend that you do a Bachelor of Biomedical Science, or if you want to help people, if you want to cure diseases, medical science may also be an option for you. But I'd really like to thank you for joining me today. Certainly there may be a number of questions that you have after looking at this. Contact the different institutions for any questions. We're all very helpful and we all want to help you have clarity and understanding so that they can inform your decisions moving forward. But I just want to wish you all the best of luck, and I certainly hope that you will find your chosen degree and your chosen career path, and I also wish you the best of luck in the future. So thank you very much and bye.